Society tells us depression looks like crying in a dark room, but psychology proves it often looks like the exact opposite. You become the loudest person at the party, making everyone laugh. Yet the second you close your front door, your smile drops, the heavy silence hits, and you completely collapse on your bed. If you keep masking this exhaustion with constant noise, you are pushing your nervous system toward a total freeze. I will decode these 8 hidden survival habits and guide you out. But first, take a gentle breath and tell me, what city or state in the US are you navigating right now, so I can send a little warmth your way? There are 8 things people often do unconsciously when they are depressed, and some of them look nothing like sadness. Depression does not always make a person cry in a dark room or stop functioning completely. Sometimes it makes them louder. Sometimes it makes them disappear. Sometimes it causes them to laugh when they want to cry, become angry over something small, or feel strangely empty during moments that should matter. That is why depression can remain hidden for so long. The person experiencing it may not recognize what is happening. The people around them may mistake their behavior for attention-seeking, laziness, coldness, or a bad attitude. But beneath those behaviors, there may be a nervous system trying desperately to survive an emotional weight it no longer knows how to carry. The first thing you may unconsciously do when depressed is become excessively social. You may suddenly feel the need to be around people constantly. You accept every invitation. You make plans for the weekend before the week has even ended. You become the funny one, the energetic one, the person who keeps the conversation moving whenever silence enters the room. From the outside, you seem happier than ever. You laugh loudly, you tell stories, you check on everyone else, you make sure nobody feels uncomfortable. And because you appear so alive in public, no one suspects that being alone with your own thoughts has started to feel unbearable. Imagine someone who becomes the center of every gathering. They make everyone laugh until their stomachs hurt. They take pictures, order another round of food, and convince the group to stay a little longer. But when the evening ends and the front door closes behind them, their entire body changes. The smile disappears. The silence returns, and within minutes they are sitting on the edge of the bed, emotionally collapsing beneath a pain that nobody at the party ever saw. This can be a form of psychological protection. Sometimes the mind creates behavior that appears to be the opposite of what a person feels inside. Instead of withdrawing, they become intensely outgoing. Instead of showing despair, they become entertaining. Instead of admitting they feel disconnected, they surround themselves with as many people as possible. The noise of the crowd becomes a way to drown out the voice inside that keeps whispering, "You are not enough. You are alone. Nothing is going to change." Being social is not the problem. Human connection can be deeply healing. The warning sign appears when you are no longer seeking connection, because it nourishes you. You are seeking constant stimulation, because silence feels dangerous. You may not be running toward people. You may be running away from yourself. The second thing you may unconsciously do is move in the complete opposite direction. You isolate yourself so severely that even responding to a simple message feels exhausting. You see a friend's name appear on your phone, but you cannot bring yourself to open the message. You tell yourself you will reply in 10 minutes. 10 minutes becomes 3 hours. 3 hours becomes 3 days. Soon, the number of unread messages begins to grow, and every unanswered conversation creates another layer of guilt. You may cancel plans at the last minute, even plans you genuinely wanted to attend. You invent an excuse about being busy, feeling sick, or having too much work. Sometimes you do bury yourself in work, not because you are motivated, but because tasks are easier to control than relationships. A spreadsheet does not ask you how you are feeling. An email does not notice that your voice sounds different. Work allows you to appear productive while quietly avoiding the vulnerability of being seen. People around you may assume that you no longer care. They may stop inviting you. They may call you distant or unreliable. What they cannot see is that your nervous system may be overwhelmed. Depression can make ordinary social interaction feel like a performance requiring energy you simply do not have. Answering, "How have you been?" may feel impossible when you do not know how to explain what is happening inside you. So the brain chooses withdrawal. It enters a kind of protective freeze. It reduces communication, movement, and emotional exposure in an attempt to conserve whatever energy remains. Isolation can feel safe at first. No questions, no expectations, no need to pretend. But over time, that safety can become a cage. The longer you disappear, the more difficult returning begins to feel. You become ashamed of your absence, and that shame pushes you even further away. The third thing you may unconsciously do is express emotions that do not seem to match the situation. You may laugh during a serious conversation and immediately wonder what is wrong with you. You may attend a funeral or hear painful news and feel absolutely nothing. Then later, something insignificant happens, like dropping a spoon or seeing an old commercial, and you suddenly begin crying uncontrollably. This does not necessarily mean you are uncaring or emotionally unstable. Sometimes it means your connection to your own emotions has become disrupted. When the mind has carried too much sadness for too long, it may begin turning down the emotional volume as a form of protection. You know intellectually that something is painful, but you cannot feel the response you believe you are supposed to feel. You may describe events clearly, while remaining disconnected from the emotions underneath them. This can resemble alexithymia, a difficulty identifying and describing internal emotional states. It is as though your body is sending signals, but your mind no longer knows how to translate them. The laughter, numbness, or sudden tears are not proof that you are broken. They may be signs that your emotional system is overloaded. None of these behaviors alone confirms depression, but when they become persistent, distressing, or begin interfering with your relationships and daily life, they deserve attention rather than judgment. What looks strange from the outside may be your mind's quiet attempt to keep you functioning. And sometimes, the behavior you feel most ashamed of is actually the place where your pain has been trying to speak. The fourth thing you may unconsciously do when depressed is react with anger that feels much bigger than the situation in front of you. Someone forgets to close a door, and you snap at them. Traffic moves too slowly, and your entire body fills with rage. A glass spills on the kitchen counter, and suddenly you feel as though one more inconvenience will completely destroy you. Afterward, you may feel confused or ashamed. You tell yourself, "It was only a glass of water. Why did I react like that?" But the anger was probably never only about the spilled water. It may have been about the sleep you have not been getting, the pressure you have been hiding, the loneliness you cannot explain, the responsibilities you keep carrying while pretending they are not becoming heavier. The small event was simply the final drop in a container that had already been overflowing for weeks. Depression is often imagined as quiet sadness, but it can also appear as irritability. When emotional pain has nowhere safe to go, the mind may redirect it towards something easier to confront. It is less frightening to become angry at a slow driver than to admit that you feel trapped in your own life. It is easier to criticize someone for leaving a light on than to say, "I am barely holding myself together." Psychology sometimes calls this displacement. The original pain feels too complicated, too vulnerable, or too dangerous to express, so it is released onto a safer target. This does not excuse hurting other people, but understanding the source of the reaction can help you respond with responsibility rather than shame. Instead of asking only, "Why am I so angry?" it may help to ask, "What pain have I been forcing myself not to feel?" Anger is sometimes the bodyguard of sadness. It stands at the door, speaks loudly, and pushes people away because the softer emotions behind it feel too exposed. The fifth thing you may unconsciously do is experience a complete disruption in your sleep. You are exhausted all day, yet when your head touches the pillow, your mind suddenly becomes wide awake. At 3 in the morning, you replay conversations from years ago. You imagine everything that could go wrong tomorrow. You remember mistakes you thought you had forgotten. Your body begs for rest while your brain opens 1,000 invisible tabs. Then, just as morning arrives, exhaustion finally overwhelms you. You fall asleep when the rest of the world is waking up. Hours disappear. You may sleep until the afternoon and still wake feeling as though you have not rested at all. For some people, depression creates insomnia. For others, it creates excessive sleeping. And sometimes it creates both, trapping a person between nights of restless thinking and days of trying to escape consciousness. Sleep may become the only place where you do not have to perform. When you are asleep, you do not have to answer messages, make decisions, solve problems, or explain why you are not yourself. So you return to bed, not always because your body needs more sleep, but because waking life feels emotionally expensive. At other times, sleep becomes a battlefield. Depression can interfere with the systems that regulate mood, alertness, and the body's natural day and night rhythm. But beyond the biology, there is also the psychological struggle of being alone with your thoughts. During the day, distractions may keep painful feelings at a distance. At night, the world becomes quiet enough for everything you avoided to return. You are not failing at sleep. Your nervous system may simply no longer feel safe enough to fully rest. The sixth thing you may unconsciously do when depressed is become exhausted by tasks that once seemed ordinary. Taking a shower feels like a project. Getting dressed feels like a decision you do not have the energy to make. You stand beside the bed, knowing you only need to place your feet on the floor. Yet that small movement feels strangely enormous. People may tell you that exercise will help, that you should go outside, clean your room, or develop a better routine. Their advice may be well-intended, but it can make you feel even more defective because they do not understand that you are already using enormous energy just to appear functional. Depression does not only create emotional pain, it can drain cognitive energy. Your brain is constantly managing negative thoughts, self-criticism, anxiety, emotional suppression, and the effort of pretending to be okay. Even when your body appears still, your mind may be working overtime. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack that no one else can see. Every conversation, chore, and responsibility requires you to move while carrying that invisible weight. Other people complete the same tasks without the backpack, then wonder why you are moving so slowly. This mental exhaustion is sometimes described as brain fog. You lose your train of thought, you read the same sentence repeatedly without understanding it. You walk into a room and forget why you entered. You struggle to remember names, appointments, or simple instructions. You may begin calling yourself lazy, careless, or stupid. But exhaustion is not a character flaw. Sometimes it is the cost of surviving an internal battle that has been running every hour of the day. Even pretending to be normal consumes energy. Smiling at coworkers, keeping your voice steady, answering, "I'm fine," and hiding the fact that everything feels difficult can leave you completely depleted by the time you return home. That is why you may collapse after doing what others consider very little. They only see the visible task. They do not see how much strength it took for you to complete it while fighting your own mind. When depression changes your anger, your sleep, or your energy, the temptation is to judge yourself more harshly. But shame usually adds weight to a system that is already overloaded. What you need is not another voice telling you to try harder. You may need permission to recognize that you have been trying hard for a very long time. The seventh thing you may unconsciously do when depressed is experience a sudden change in your appetite. You may begin eating long after your body is full. You stand in the kitchen at midnight, reaching for something sweet, salty, or crunchy, even though hunger is not what brought you there. You keep chewing because the repetitive movement gives your nervous system something predictable to focus on. For a few minutes, the taste interrupts the emptiness. The sugar creates a brief spark of pleasure. The food asks no questions and requires no explanation. This is often called comfort eating, but the comfort may last only a few moments. Afterward, guilt arrives. You criticize your body, your lack of control, or your inability to stop. That shame creates more emotional pain, and the pain may send you back toward food again. But another person experiencing depression may move in the opposite direction. They forget to eat. Food loses its smell, taste, and emotional meaning. Preparing a meal feels like too many steps. Choosing ingredients, washing a plate, chewing, and cleaning afterward can seem like unnecessary work when even existing feels exhausting. Days begin to organize themselves around skipped breakfasts and untouched dinners. Hunger may still appear, but the motivation to respond to it becomes weak. These two behaviors may look completely different, yet both can come from the same place. The brain is struggling to regulate reward, stress, and basic self-care. One person searches for a temporary burst of dopamine through food. Another becomes so disconnected from pleasure and survival signals that eating feels pointless. Neither response means you are weak. Your appetite may be expressing what you have not yet found the words to say. The eighth thing you may unconsciously do when depressed is become paralyzed by simple decisions. Someone asks what you want for dinner, and your mind goes blank. You stand in front of your closet for 15 minutes, staring at two shirts as though choosing the wrong one could ruin your entire day. You open a menu, read every option, and feel increasingly anxious instead of hungry. Eventually, you may say, "I do not care, you choose." But inside, you may care deeply. You simply cannot access the mental energy required to compare, evaluate, and trust your own judgment. Depression can weaken the brain's ability to plan, prioritize, and make decisions. When your mind is already carrying sadness, fear, guilt, and exhaustion, even a small choice becomes one demand too many. You may also begin doubting every decision immediately after making it. Was that the wrong thing to say? Should I have stayed home? Did I choose the wrong job? Am I ruining my life? This constant self-questioning can make indecision feel safer than action. If you choose nothing, you cannot choose incorrectly. But avoiding decisions can slowly reduce your confidence until you no longer trust yourself with even the smallest parts of your life. This is not a lack of intelligence. It is often a sign of depletion. Your mind is not empty because you have nothing inside it. It may be crowded with so much invisible pressure that there is no space left for one more choice. If you recognize yourself in several of these 8 behaviors, pause before turning that recognition into another reason to criticize yourself. These signs do not automatically mean you have depression. They may also appear during grief, chronic stress, anxiety, burnout, trauma, physical illness, or periods of severe sleep deprivation. But they are signals worth listening to. You do not have to wait until you completely fall apart before asking for support. You do not need to prove that your pain is severe enough. If these experiences continue, interfere with your daily life, or make you feel unsafe, speaking with a licensed mental health professional or trusted medical provider can be an important next step. And before you leave, here is the promised bonus practice. Recognition is the first step. The second is helping your body move out of the frozen, overwhelmed state it may have entered. Place both feet on the floor. Let your shoulders drop slightly. Now breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 4 seconds. Exhale gently for 4 seconds. Then remain empty for 4 seconds before breathing in again. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Repeat this cycle 4 times. Do not force yourself to feel peaceful. The goal is not to erase your emotions or solve your entire life in 1 minute. The goal is simply to send your nervous system a small message. In this moment, I am here. In this moment, I am breathing. In this moment, I do not have to solve everything at once. Depression often convinces you that healing must begin with a dramatic transformation. But sometimes healing begins with 1 breath, 1 glass of water, 1 honest message, or 1 decision to stop carrying everything alone. Your unconscious behaviors are not evidence that you are failing at life. They may be evidence that some part of you has been fighting very hard to keep you alive. Treat that part of yourself gently. If one of these signs describes something you have never been able to explain, share your experience in the comments. Your words may help someone else realize that they are not strange, lazy, cold, or broken. They may simply be hurting. Subscribe if you want more quiet, practical conversations about understanding your mind without judging it. And in the next video, we will practice a longer grounding technique designed to help you reconnect with your body when your thoughts feel impossible to control. You do not have to heal everything today. For now, just stay for the next breath.